Welcome to Rise Shikshan Samstha's Dada Patil Mahavidyalaya Karjat. I am Dr. M. A. Patil, working as Associate Professor in the Department of Physics. Today we have this third lecture from Chapter 1, Physics of Atoms, from the paper Physics Principles and Application, Semester 1, FIBSc. In this lecture, today we are going to discuss about Frank and Hertz experiment, and another part is introduction to laser. In this laser, we have to study three basic phenomena in the production of laser. First one is induced absorption, second is spontaneous emission, and third one is the stimulated emission. So let us see the Frank and Hertz experiment. As we have seen in the last lecture, that Bohr's assumed that the energy levels are a discrete one. There are only certain energy levels, certain orbits, and these orbits or energy levels are separated by certain distance. To support this statement of Bohr's atom, or to give the experimental proof for the discrete energy levels, Frank and Hertz experiment is carried out. So this represents the Frank and Hertz experimental arrangement. In this arrangement, the important one is this glass tube. Outer tube is glass tube. Inside this glass tube, the mercury vapor is filled at low pressure. So we have to understand that inside this glass tube there will be mercury atoms. Then there are three electrodes, F, G and P. So F represents the filament. It is actually cathode. When this filament is heated with low tension battery, low voltage, electrons are emitted. So filaments acts as a cathode to emit the electrons. Then here two electrodes are there. One is a grid. It is a wire mesh at the higher positive potential. So in between filament and this grid, voltage V is applied, and this voltage is variable voltage. From 0 to 60 volts, this voltage can be varied. Then the third electrode, which acts as an anode, is a plate P. It is also acts as a collector. So plate P acts as a collector to collect these electrons. In between grid G and P, a small voltage of 0.5 volt is applied. So as compared to the higher voltage of the grid, this P voltage is a lower voltage. It acts as a retarding potential. But when we compare the voltage between this cathode and this plate P, it is a accelerating voltage. So here we have to understand that the accelerating voltage is applied between this anode cathode F and this grid G. So this voltage is varied from 0 to 60 volt, and on the other hand, to measure the collector current or plate current, here current meter is used. So the experiment will be voltage V is varied from 0 onwards, and the plate current IP is measured and their graph is plotted. So we can see here that when filament is heated, electrons are emitted. These electrons are accelerated by grid. Grid have the wire mesh. Through this mesh, through this opening, the electron passes and finally collected by plate P. And here the plate current IP is noted. So the graph appears like this. So x-axis represents the accelerating voltage, that is the voltage applied between the filament and grid G, and y-axis represents the electric current, that is the current IP measured in series with the collector plate P. So Rank and Hertz observed three facts. Their observations was that when the voltage is increased up to 0 to 0.5 volt, there was no current. But when this accelerating voltage, that is voltage between G plate G and the filament F, was from 0.5 volt to 4.9 volt, current increases steadily. So here on this graph we can observe that as the voltage increases from 0.5 to 4.9, the electrons are accelerated and they can reach to the plate very fast. Second observation is that at voltage 4.9 volt, current decreases sharply. So here we can see that after 4.9 volt, current decreases very sharply to 0. And then we can see again when voltage is increased above 4.9 volt, current again start to increase, and this continues up to the voltage 9.8. At 9.8 volt, again we observe that current decreases very sharply. After that, if we increase the current above 9 volt, again same pattern is repeated. Current increases steadily up to 14.7 volt. That is, the same pattern is repeated at regular interval of 4.9 volt. So these facts was explained by the Rutherfords. So he give the explanation for this by stating that when the voltage is above 0.5 volt, these electrons are moving, and these electrons that is generated from the cathode, they are in their path, they collide with these mercury atoms, but the collision is the elastic collision. And when elastic collision is there, the kinetic energy is shared between the electrons emitted from the filament and the mercury atoms in the path of these electrons, and therefore they can reach to the plate up to the voltage 4.9 volt. Means when voltage is between 0 to 4.9 volt, the collision between electrons emitted from this filament and the mercury atom is the elastic type, and therefore they can reach to the plate, and hence current goes continuously increasing. Then second fact, we have seen that at the voltage exactly 4.9 volt. At this 4.9 volt, these electrons emitted from this filament have the sufficient energy. They acquired sufficient energy so that when the electrons collide with the mercury atoms in their path, the collision becomes inelastic collision. So that energy is sufficient to knock out the electrons from the mercury atom, and therefore these electrons lost totally their kinetic energy, and therefore they cannot reach to this plate P. So as they have transferred their energy, as they have utilized their energy to knock the electron from this mercury atom, therefore they cannot reach. And again after 4.9 volt, again the electrons emitted have lower kinetic energy. Since the kinetic energy is lower, the collision becomes elastic collision, so that their energy, kinetic energy is shared, and therefore they can reach to the plate P. So this continue up to the 9.8 volt. At 9.8 volt, again the type of collision changes. The kinetic energy of the electrons emitted from this filament is so increased that they are able to knock out electron from the mercury atoms. So they utilize their energy to knock the electron from the mercury atom and hence lost their kinetic energy and unable to reach to the grid and to the plate P, and hence they lost their energy. So this Frank and Hertz explain these facts on the basis of the elastic collision and inelastic collision between the electrons emitted from the filament and the mercury atoms. Then the mercury atoms, when they absorb this energy and electron is knocked out, electron goes into the higher energy state. But this transition is temporary. Again, electron when come back from higher orbit to the lower orbit, then the radiation is emitted according to the Bohr's third postulate, and that emitted radiation have the wavelength according to the equation h mu is equal to E2 minus E1, where E2 will be the higher energy state and E1 will be the lower energy state. And when such a wavelength or radiation is emitted, Frank and Hertz experimentally measured the wavelength of this emitted radiation. It was found to be 2537 angstrom unit. Then he put this wavelength in the equation A is equal to h mu, where h is the Planck's constant, and we can also modify this equation. Mu is equal to c upon lambda, where c is the velocity of light. So we put this value of h as 6.625 into 10 raised to minus 34. Velocity c is 3 into 10 raised to 8 meters, and wavelength which they experimentally measure is 2537 angstrom unit. That is 2537 into 10 raised to minus 10 meter. So this comes to be 7.83 into 10 raised to minus 10 joule, or in terms of voltage, this energy is equal to 4.9 volt. So from this theoretical calculation, the energy comes to be 4.9 volt, and from experimental observed graph, the pattern repeats after every 4.9 volt. And from this experimental fact, so since there is agreement between this calculated value and theoretical value, this Frank and Hertz prove that the mercury atoms has sharp and discrete energy level. Hence, this Frank and Hertz give the experimental proof to Bohr's theoretical suggestion in the third postulate that the energy levels are discrete one. Then we come to the another topic, that is introduction to the laser. As we know, the laser, it is the device with the help of which very intense beam of light is produced. This beam have certain characteristics. It is highly monochromatic, it is coherent, and it is highly volumetric. So this monochromatic, it means that it is having the single wavelength. The wavelength is very sharp. So it is in the pure form, single wavelength is generated. Secondly, it is coherent. It means all the individual components in this beam, they are all the radiations are in the same phase. They therefore they add each other, their amplitude increases automatically, intensity increases, and hence the intense beam of light is produced. So they are also highly collimated, means very fine beam of this laser can be produced, so that it can travel a large distance. So if we compare laser with ordinary light, then these are the important characteristics, that this is a intense beam, the divergence is very small, and therefore laser beam can travel a large distance, very large distance. Because of these characteristics, laser is very intensively used in large fields. These fields are in the area of research, in the medicine, in the military applications. So in the mechanical industry, they are used for cutting, welding purpose. In radar, these lasers are used with the help of this laser beam. In the research, the synthesis methods are also developed. So because of these characteristics, because of these very important characteristics, laser have very wide applications, and therefore it is very important for us to understand how this laser beam is generated. So actually this laser is a short form, it is an acronym for light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. So here in this long form of laser, we can see two parts. First part is light amplification. Second part is stimulated emission of radiation. So to understand how laser beam is generated, we have to understand three basic phenomenon in the radiations. So the first phenomenon is induced absorption. So in this diagram, we can see that nucleus is at the center, and we have shown here two orbits in which electron can revolve. First orbit having the energy E1 and second orbit having the energy E2. And here we can see that the electron is revolving in the first orbit. Then here we suppose that this photon is incident on this atom. When this photon have the energy h mu equal to difference between these two energies, that is E2 minus E1, then when such a photon is incident on this atom, then it is observed that after absorption of this photon, there is a absorption of photon by this atom. With this absorption, energy is increased. The electron jumps from the lower orbit to the higher orbit. So here previously electron is in the lower orbit E1, and then with the absorption of the photon, it goes into the higher energy level E2. In this diagram, this atom in which electron is in the lower state, it is the normal state or it is the ground state electron. But when such induced absorption takes place, electron is in the higher energy state, which is unstable state, and we can say that the atom is excited. So before absorption, the atom is in the normal state. After this induced absorption, atom goes into the excited state. The same thing can be explained on the basis of energy level diagram. Okay, so here the electron is in the lower energy state. When such a photon is incident on this, we can see that this electron goes into the higher energy state, or we can say that atom is in the ground state, atom goes into the excited state after the absorption. So this absorption is with the help of this photon. So this is induced absorption. We need the photon, external photon, with the energy h mu is equal to E2 minus E1. So this absorption does not takes place automatically. It requires external photon. So it is called as induced. Induced means with the help of external photon. So this is the first phenomenon in this laser action. Second phenomenon is called as spontaneous emission. So here we can see that the atom is again having the energy levels E2 and energy level E1, but here we can see that electron is in the higher energy state. So electron is in the higher energy state. So here this atom before this emission process in excited state. So it is an unstable state. So electron cannot remain here for a longer time. So this electron try to decrease its energy by emitting such a photon. So there is emission of photon from this atom and electron. When such a photon is emitted, here the photon is again emitted with the frequency mu, so that the energy of the photon will be equal to h mu, equal to the difference in these two energy state E2 minus E1, and hence when such a photon is emitted, then we can see that this electron jumps from E2 to E1. So again atom comes into the normal state or the stable state. So the basic difference between the spontaneous emission and induced absorption is that here atom initially is in the excited state. On the other hand, in previous case, atom was in the ground state. So here the emission of the photon takes place automatically or spontaneously. On the other hand, in previous case, here the photon was required so that the atom goes from normal state to the excited state. So this phenomenon of spontaneous emission can be explained with the help of energy level diagram. So E1 is the lower energy state of the atom and E2 is the higher energy state of the atom, or it is the excited state. So in excited state, atom cannot remain for a longer time. So this electron from outer orbit jumps to the lower orbit and the atom gets a stable state, or we can say the ground state. So photon is emitted, and when photon is emitted, this electron jumps from higher orbit to the lower orbit, or stability is required. So it is important in this spontaneous emission process that photons emitted move randomly. So this diagram is shown for only one atom, single atom, but in the material there will be number of such atoms will be there. So emission of such photons is at random time and at random direction. So the photons emitted by different atoms will be incoherent. They will not in phase. So such a spontaneous emission is of no use for the laser action. Then we see the third phenomenon called as the stimulated emission. So in case of stimulated emission, we can see that again atom is in excited state. That is electron is at higher energy level E2 and therefore it is in excited state. In this case, we require a photon which is having the lower, which is having the frequency mu such that h mu is equal to E2 minus E1. When such a photon is incident on this atom, then we can see that there are two photons are emitted simultaneously, and hence the atom comes from the excited state to the ground state. So we can see on the basis of energy level diagram here the photon is incident with energy h mu when it, it is absorbed by this excited atom. Two photons will be emitted and atom comes to the lower state or the stable state by emission of these two photons. So we have seen two processes. One is the stimulated emission and previous was the spontaneous emission. So for the spontaneous case, there was no need of such a incident photon, but the stimulated emission, there must be external photon generated, there must be a photon generated by chance, and it should have the exact energy equal to difference between these two, E2 minus E1. Then such a photon starts the process of stimulated emission. Here two photons are emitted in the stimulated emission process. In the previous process only one photon was emitted, and these two photons are coherent. That means they have the same direction and same velocity. They are in phase with each other. So this is the important difference between stimulated emission process and the spontaneous emission process. Then we will see how the process of amplification takes place. So let us see that this photon, single photon is incident on this excited atom, and then as seen in previous diagram, these two coherent photons are emitted. These two coherent photons are incident on another two excited atoms. Therefore, each atom will generate these two photons, and hence overall four photons are emitted. All these emitted photons are coherent. They have the same direction and they are in phase. So these four photons will again incident on the four excited atoms, and each excited atom will generate two photons, and hence they comes to the stability. So these four excited atoms will generate eight photons, and these eight photons will travel along the same velocity and same direction. In this way the multiplication process takes place, and this multiplication is avalanche multiplication. In a very short time large number of radiations, a large number of photons will be emitted, and they will be all in phase and in the same direction, and hence intense laser beam will be there. Thank you.